Husband invited his ex to live with us without asking me. So I said no, but he told me I could leave if I had a problem. Now I've filed for divorce and she's bragging about sleeping with him. I, 27F, have been married to my husband Jacob, 28M, for almost 2 years now, but I think we might be headed for a divorce over something that happened 3 days ago. So, a couple of days ago, my husband brought home a friend of his from high school who happened to be a woman. This woman, Allison, was his friend back in high school, and when he brought her home, it was around evening time, so I figured that they'd just run into each other at the mall where Jacob had been and he brought her home for dinner or something. I welcomed her home and treated her like I would treat any other guest, but throughout dinner, I could just tell that there was something off about this person. The way she was talking to Jacob made me feel like they had a thing back in high school, and by the end of the evening, I just wanted her to leave, very honestly. Because she was making me uncomfortable with all her inside jokes with my husband and the way she would cozy up to him or try to touch him every couple of seconds. It literally felt like, for her, she would just find excuses to touch him on the arm or on the hand, and she was laughing extra hard at all his jokes, even the ones that were not very funny. So I guess people can tell why I wasn't comfortable with this woman, and after dessert was served, I figured that she would leave soon. I tried to be as pleasant as possible, despite how uncomfortable I was. But 2 hours passed, and at around 10, when she still hadn't left, I pulled Jacob into a corner and asked him what the hell was going on, because this was weird. Since she just wasn't leaving. And only when I asked, did Jacob tell me that he had actually invited her home because she had been evicted from her house because she hadn't paid rent for the past 4 months. And now apparently, she was going to spend the night at our house and probably the next couple of days as well, until she found another apartment that she could move into. He also told me that she hadn't run into him at the mall like I had believed. But in fact, they'd reconnected on social media and had been talking online for weeks before this, which is how he found out that she was looking for a place to live and offered to let her move in with us for the time being. I was obviously annoyed about it and asked him why he hadn't consulted with me before offering to let her move in. I also told him that I wasn't comfortable with the idea of her living with us in our home because she had made me feel uneasy throughout the evening with her odd behavior around Jacob. He tried to downplay it and told me that I was just being crazy, that he was only helping out a friend in need, but I told him that I wanted her to leave and I wasn't going to put up with this. I insisted that he talk to her and tell her to go, but he told me that he had already promised her and he couldn't break her heart this way. Apparently, all her stuff was in the car and she had moved out of her apartment today itself. He had helped her move out and he couldn't just tell her that it wasn't happening. He was acting really weird and squirrely, so I asked him to be honest with me and tell me who this Allison was. And as it turns out, I'd been right all along about her having a thing with Jacob back in high school, because he confessed that she was actually his ex-girlfriend from when he was in his senior year and they'd broken up just because he had to leave for college. I kind of freaked out at him when he told me that, because the last thing that I wanted was for his ex-girlfriend to live with us, especially when it felt like she still had a thing for him. He promised me that he and Allison were over, and had been over for a long time, but that did nothing about my insecurity. I told him that I wanted out and I wanted her out right away. I was pretty pissed off and I sounded like it too. I expected him to take me seriously, but instead, he turned around and told me that he wasn't kicking her out, and if I had a problem with Allison living with us, then I could leave instead. He told me that he was just trying to help out a friend in need, and if I was so insecure that I couldn't even handle that, then I was the problem here and I should go. After saying that, he walked out of the room and left me alone in the bedroom. I was shocked that he was choosing Allison over me, his wife of 2 years. We'd even been in a relationship for almost 3 years before we got married, so I think I should be a lot more important to him than some girl he dated in high school for a year before he left for college. I was stunned after he told me to leave and had nothing to say for a couple of seconds. When I went back into the living room, I saw that he was sitting on the couch beside Allison and they were laughing at some sitcom that was playing on the TV. Allison even had the audacity to tell me to come sit beside them, and then she scooted over so that she'd be sitting really close to Jacob and I would have to sit beside her while she cozied up to my husband. After she said that, I left and went back into the bedroom, packed some of my stuff in a bag, and walked out into the living room. I didn't even care that Allison was right there. I told Jacob that he could either kick her out immediately and we could talk about this, or I would be leaving. He said nothing and just pursed his lips and chose to look the other way while Allison got up and started speaking to me in a really falsely sweet voice and told me that she didn't intend to cause any problems. That she was just an old friend and that's how it was going to be, and then she turned around and asked Jacob, "Right, Jake?" Now I know that Jacob hates it when people call him Jake, but when Allison said it, he didn't seem to have any problem with that. I just sighed and walked out of the door and slammed it shut behind me as loudly as I could. Jacob didn't even chase me or try to stop me, and of course, neither did Allison, because this is obviously what she wanted all along. It was a little creepy, but once I was out of the door, I decided to linger and check out what was going to happen inside the living room once I was gone. I know it seems crazy, but I really felt in my gut that this was something I had to do. And lucky for me that I did, because I could peek through the curtain since we never really shut them entirely. And I saw that as soon as I had left, Alice and Jacob sat side by side and I could barely hear it, but they were having some conversation which was definitely about me. Jacob looked upset, and after a while, to my shock, Jacob laid down and rested his head on Allison's lap where she stroked his hair. I was furious when I saw that, and in the heat of the moment, I decided to take out my phone and click a picture of the two of them in that position. They couldn't see me, but I could see them, and I made sure that I got an angle where both their faces would be visible in the picture. When I was done clicking the picture, I decided that I didn't need to stick around anymore and walked all the way to a friend's house. I could have taken my car, but I really didn't want to drive, especially when I was in such a terrible mood. I honestly just wanted to walk and think about what I'd just seen. My blood was boiling, and I felt like I just had to do something to get back at Jacob for what he was doing to me. So before I knocked on my friend's door, I decided to go online and post the pictures that I'd taken, with a caption that just said cheater and nothing else. After I was done posting, I knocked on my friend's door and she let me in. She had just checked her social media and she asked me what the heck my post was about as soon as she saw me. Once I entered the living room, I explained the story to her. Once I was sitting on the couch and she told me that I'd gone a little too far in dealing with this because already, the comments are full of hate towards Allison and Jacob. She told me that while she agreed that Jacob needed to be called out, posting a personal picture of them that was so intimate was probably not the best way to go about the situation, and I could also get into legal trouble for it if it actually came down to that. I heard her out and it actually made a lot of sense, what she was saying, so I decided to go ahead and delete the image from my account. But even after I took down the post, several people continued to text me to put it back up, because they thought that that was exactly what Jacob deserved. I was touched that so many people were on my side, but I got a harsh reality check when my friend told me that they didn't really care about my marriage or my relationship with Jacob, but they only cared about the gossip that they were going to get out of this. So I needed to stay out of the drama and ignore the people who were texting me because they only cared about all the drama that was going to come out of this, not about my emotional well-being. She was right, so I decided to turn off my phone for a while and do something to distract myself. It was already pretty late at night when I'd shown up at my friend's place, so after a while, I just went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, my friend told me that Jacob was waiting for me outside in the living room. He'd turned up just a couple of minutes before I woke up, and even though my friend had tried to send him back home, he refused to leave without seeing me first. I thought that he was here to apologize, and I was already prepared to turn him down and reject his apology because I wasn't feeling particularly forgiving at the time. But when I went out into the living room, ready with my speech, I was in for a shock when the first words that came out of Jacob's mouth weren't "I'm sorry, but are you insane? And what the heck were you even thinking?" I knew that he must be pissed about my post the previous night, but he seemed more than pissed off. He seemed hysterical and very upset. It all finally made sense when he told me that someone had sent that picture to his parents and now they were refusing to speak to him, which was bad for him because he had been planning to quit his job and start his own business. He needed his father's money for that and wanted his dad to come on board as an investor, but now his father wasn't even speaking to him and neither was his mother responding to any of his calls or texts. He told me that his parents hadn't even given him an explanation as to why they had blocked him, but he knew that my post had everything to do with it, because it happened only after I put up that picture of him with Allison. And now, he wanted me to talk to his parents and tell them that it was just a prank or something to make them speak to him again because he wasn't going to let my stupid mistake mess with his future. I probably would have apologized to him, had he not demanded that I speak to his parents and make everything alright again. Because honestly, after what he'd done the previous night, I didn't think he was in any position to make demands like that. And it really pissed me off how entitled he was acting, so I told him that he deserved this because he'd been cheating on me. To that, he said that Allison was literally nothing but just a friend and I was reading too much into this. He then accused me of being insecure, jealous, and toxic, and even told me that after I left, Allison had been comforting him, which is why he had rested his head on her lap. And that was it. They hadn't done anything funny together after I left because that's just not him. I told him that I didn't trust him and I didn't believe a single word that was coming out of his mouth. I told him that he needed to leave because I had no interest in carrying on this argument and wasting my day. As far as I was concerned, he'd been emotionally involved, at the very least, with Allison. And I couldn't take that. I saw it with my own two eyes and there was just no covering it up anymore. Even if I ignored the fact that he had rested his head on her lap and somehow put that image out of my head, I wouldn't be able to forget that he had chosen to let her stay with us even after I told him that I was uncomfortable with that idea and had even given him an ultimatum to pick between us, and he'd picked Allison. I wasn't fine with that, and I don't think that any other woman in my position could have ever been okay with something like that. I told him to leave and he did leave, but not before telling me that this wasn't over, which sounded like a threat, and I am guessing that it was, but so far he hasn't done anything apart from texting me relentlessly telling me to talk to his parents and fix this. My friend thinks that I should talk to his parents and do something about the situation. Because as bad as what he did was, I shouldn't have posted that picture of them. Even if I wanted to expose them for what they were doing, I should have just made a post or something. But I posted a photograph, which really didn't seem okay with her and felt like an invasion of their privacy. And I feel like she's right about this. But honestly, I can't just forget about what Jacob did to me. I'm pretty sure that Allison is still living with him and my blood boils when I even think of the two of them in that house, my house. I feel like I should do something, but I really don't think he deserves my sympathy. Ida for posting a picture of my husband with his head in his high school ex's lap after he picked her over me. Update 1. Hey, so I decided not to talk to my in-laws and do anything about this. Because like I said in my original post, I really don't think that my husband deserves anything good to happen to him right now. If he wants the situation to be fixed, he's going to have to do something about it himself. Because I ain't the one to go running to his parents, asking them to forgive him when I myself don't forget him. It's been 4 days since I posted and almost a week since he brought Allison home. I'm pretty sure that she's still living with him because I created a fake account to stalk her and I found out that all her recent stories that she's uploaded have a very familiar background. All those pictures have been clicked in and around my house, so I know that she's still there. I can't imagine the audacity that Jacob has, to still let Allison live in our house, even after everything that has happened. But to be fair, everything that could go wrong has already gone wrong. So he might as well stay with her because now, I think we're at the point of no return. I can't imagine myself going back to him at any cost and he's probably not even going to try. So far, he has only been texting me to convince me to talk to his parents. I've just been ignoring all his texts. I haven't found it in me to block him yet, but I will. Soon enough. As soon as I'm ready to cut him out of my life entirely. I'm not at that point yet because we've been together for a long time and this is very hard for me. I was angry in my original post, but now that all the anger is gone, all I feel is heartbroken because this is the end of my marriage and I know it. The funny thing is that I'd never even seen this coming. A lot of you had asked me if there were any signs of him being bored or wanting to be with another person. And to be honest, there had never been any signs. At no point did I ever think that he didn't want to be with me. His cheating on me was something I had never even imagined in my worst nightmares. It was literally that unlikely. He and we'd been in love for years and he was pretty much head over heels in love with me before he even asked me out. It was me who took a while to say yes to him, but once we were together, there was just no looking back. And now, this is where it ends. I really never could have seen this coming. So to say that I'm shattered wouldn't be enough to explain how I really feel about my marriage ending like this. My friends have been very supportive and so have my parents and I am grateful for that. I just hope that I'm able to stay strong through the divorce as well. I've already filed for divorce. It's been a day since then and I have got to say, I don't feel as relieved and confident as I thought I would. All I feel is stressed out and worried about what is going to happen. I'm still living with my friend and I'm working from home because I don't have the energy to go outside right now. Update 2, Jacob was served with the divorce papers today. He called me to ask me if I was serious about this and I said yes. Then he started screaming at me on the phone. I had to take it away from my ear because he was being so loud. He told me that I was taking this too far and tried to convince me that there was nothing going on between him and Allison. So I asked him if he was still letting her live in our home. He hesitated a little, but then he confessed that he had indeed been living with Allison ever since I left. He told me that she had been his emotional support, apparently, after I stormed out, and I couldn't help but laugh when he said that. I pointed out the irony in what he was saying because had it not been for Allison and their weird little friendship, then he probably never would have needed any emotional support in the first place. He got very upset when I said that and told me that Allison always spoke very highly of me, so it was disappointing for him to hear me treat her like a competition instead of a friend. I told him that I didn't care about what Allison thought about me. In fact, none of this was about Allison. This was about him and our relationship. I told him that I was getting a divorce from him, not from Allison. He was the one who had let me down. I couldn't care less about that woman even if I tried to. But I did expect certain things from my husband and he had failed to live up to those expectations. I expected a certain amount of loyalty from him and I expected him to prioritize my feelings and our marriage over his friendship with his high school ex-girlfriend. He told me that I was being unfair and unreasonable. He told me that Allison was literally nothing but a friend, yet again. As if that was going to change anything. He then asked me what I would do if I had been in the same position as him, where a friend of the opposite gender had asked me for help. I told him truthfully that I would have tried to help to the best of my abilities. But if my husband felt uncomfortable, then I wouldn't hesitate to pick my marriage over my friendship. To me, my marriage was the top priority and he had shown me that it was not the same for him. I would rather be with someone who I was on the same page with, especially about important things like this. He began to sound really exasperated and told me that I was getting way too emotional about these things and that I needed to learn to deal with my feelings like an adult. Instead of being a baby, crying, and then storming out without even a discussion just because things were not going my way. He tried to then lecture me about how life isn't fair and blah blah blah, but I wasn't interested in hearing that, so I disconnected the call. I was about to block him when he sent me a text saying that I was being immature and that I really wasn't the victim here. If anything, he was the victim because, thanks to my irrational decision to post that picture, his parents were not speaking to him anymore and he had to put his business idea on hold. He told me that he expected an apology, at the very least, from me. But he hadn't even received that and instead, I'd sent him divorce papers just to make him feel bad for helping a friend. So I texted back instantly and told him that I was really sorry for posting that picture. And then I said, that to make it even, I'll just post a picture of myself with my guy friends where I'm being inappropriately close with them. Maybe that'll help him see things how I see it. And then I blocked him, so that's done with. Update 3, well, we're in the middle of settlement negotiations right now. There's still a while to go before the divorce is finalized. But yesterday, I received a text from Allison saying that she was really sorry because she'd accidentally ended up sleeping with Jacob. She claimed that he had been having a really hard time with the divorce and everything, so she was trying to comfort him and it just happened. Of course, I didn't buy any of it and I knew that she was saying it just to rub it in my face. There was no way that they were doing this for the first time after living together for more than 3 weeks, but I didn't care. Because I was getting rid of him and she was going to be stuck with him. She could keep him, I didn't really want him anymore anyway. And I'm sure that guy who has cheated once, will cheat again without a second thought. Besides, if he cheated on me, his wife of 2 years, then Allison would have to be pretty delusional to believe that he wasn't going to cheat on her at some point. But whatever, it's just none of my business anymore. I'm out of here.